It was in July that I came across Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion in the local Target. I had heard about Gloomhaven before because I've been a forever DM for the past 12 years, and tabletop is kind of my bread and butter. But Gloomhaven was one of those things that was hard for me to get into because it was so dense and it was so expensive. But here in front of me was Jaws of the Lion, which was only $40, and on the back it said it was a good place to start. So I played it and I enjoyed it, but there was something that was off. Though the game was expansive and intricate, the miniatures just seemed kind of lifeless. After a few sessions, I decided it was time to give them color. I looked online and found plenty of tutorials that would help me paint certain miniatures, but I never found all the answers I was looking for. So I decided to make this video in hopes that I can help those who are also looking to paint their miniatures, and hopefully answer some of the questions that I had when I first started this journey. My name is Michael, the left side of the Ender Knights, and welcome to my table. So let's start with the simple first. Do my miniatures need primer? The answer is it's up to you. Yes, primer can be good for a lot of miniatures, especially helping with painting them. But the truth is, your Jaws of the Lion miniatures don't really need primer on them. What I came across when I put primer on mine was that a lot of the small details they actually put on the miniatures got covered. Now, I might have ended up putting too much primer on them and covering the small details. That was probably my fault, especially using a spray-on primer. But whenever I painted them from their base gray, the paint held just fine. So if you want to just leave them their base gray color and paint them from there, that's perfectly okay. But if you do want to go with primer, I got mine from the local Walmart for about $5 US. Now let's talk about paint. You may think you want to go to the local game store and get the most expensive paint you can, but I promise you that is not the best route. I got mine from Michael's craft store. I got a pack of 48, which I realize now was overkill. I could have got by with probably half of these, but at the end, I'm pretty glad I got them. I used Craft Smart acrylic paint, the 48 count, which cost me about $30 US. Along with these paints, you can also get the paint pots from any hobby store. I got mine from Michael's for $2. But in all honesty, you really don't need these. I got these because they were easier and they avoided paint waste. But before this, I was using common kitchen parchment paper, and it worked just fine. Now, on to the paintbrushes. You'll probably read online about how you need this paintbrush and that paintbrush, and as you can see, I've got quite a few myself. But honestly, you don't need this many to paint your miniatures. Of all these, you only really need two. This one here, which is a 0, and this one here, which is a 10/0. You can get both of these in the set from Michael's for about $6. Once you have your paints and your brush, it's time to start painting. There are a ton of tutorials out there teaching you how to paint miniatures. And I watched the beginning of quite a few of them. But I got impatient. I made plenty of mistakes. My first couple attempts did not turn out all that well. Luckily, as stated before, I used acrylic paint, which was water-based. This made it easy to scrub off all the painting I had done with soap, water, and an old toothbrush, and it let me start over fresh. Don't get discouraged if you make mistakes. This is a learning process, and half the fun of doing this is making those mistakes and learning from them. If I had let those first few mistakes get the better of me, I wouldn't have found a new passion for painting miniatures, something that has brought a lot of joy to the past couple months for me. Now, I'm not going to go into the specifics of painting each individual miniature in this video, but I might make subsequent videos of how to paint each miniature. Just understand going into this is going to sometimes be frustrating, annoying, and it will make your eyes hurt. But when you finish one that has a lot of detail on it, like this little guy right here, it'll make it all worth it. Now, last but not least, let's talk about sealing your miniatures. You want to get yourself a good sealant. That way it gives your miniature a nice professional look, plus it seals in the colors so that they don't end up getting scratched. I got this spray-on satin clear coat from Lowe's for about $5. Just like with your primer, you want to make sure you don't spray too much on your miniatures. So quick, gentle sprays are good enough. I mean, I know the painting job on some of my miniatures weren't that great, but they gave my miniatures a very professional look that I was very, very proud of. Now when spraying, what I did is I got a cardboard box, I put my miniatures on a piece of parchment paper, and I sprayed the base real quick. I let that sit for maybe 20 minutes and went and sprayed the rest of the miniature. Something you don't want to do, which was a mistake I made, is spray it while your paint is still wet. Because of my impatience, the paint bubbled and I had to strip the miniature and do it all over again. The one good thing I can say about that entire ordeal is that it taught me that you don't have to prime the miniature before you paint it. Now before I go, I've got a couple more things. There are a couple Learn to Paint kits on Amazon by the Fabulous Reaper. They usually run about $30 for the core set and $30 for the layer up set. Each kit comes with a pamphlet that shows you how to paint and 2 amazing brushes to use. I highly suggest getting them if you want to learn to paint professionally. And finally, you don't need expensive brushes to do small details. My lovely girlfriend showed me a trick where she used a toothpick to do all the fine details on all of these, and it worked out fabulously, as you can see. I myself have hand trimmers, so I'm going to be honest, some of these were hard to do. But in the end, it brought me a sense of satisfaction and pride I can't even begin to explain. I'm not a guy who comes naturally to crafting and painting, but for me, these turned out way better than I ever could have imagined. And they brought my game of Gloomhaven to life. And if I can help just one person come across that same pride and accomplishment, the time it took to paint these miniatures, the mistakes, the time it took to record this video, take all these pictures and edit it, they'll all be so much worth it. So to everybody who suffered through this, thank you for watching. And thank you for coming to sit at my table.